Hi guys, Tracy here with another scrapbooking process video. Today I'm sharing a card making process with you. Scrapbook.com and Spellbinders invited me to try out the Platinum 6 die cutting and embossing machine. Here it is here. And I am in love with this machine. I love it so much. It has such a small footprint on my desk and it works so well. I was really thrilled to receive it, and they asked me to make a couple of projects with it. They sent me the die cut machine, they sent me the tool-in-one, and 2 dies as well. I do have a separate video that shows the machine in detail and how it works, as well as the tool and the dies that they sent me. So check out that video. I will link it in the information section below. Today I made these beautiful cards. They were so much fun, and they're basically 3 versions of the same card. I'm going to share the process with you guys today, but first I wanted to show you the dies themselves and what they look like. So here is the die set. It is Shapeabilities by Spellbinders. It's the holiday line. And the set that I got are called Snowflake Snippets, and there are 5 dies in the set. It comes in a package like this, and then there's a pocket, and that pocket right there is where the dies were. And this is the die that I'm going to be using for today's cards. It's a 3" by 3" square. These are 2" by 2" squares, 2 different other snowflake designs. And then there are these little tiny 1 by 1" squares as well, which I'm not going to be using those today, but I have some ideas on how to use those other pieces. I had cut them out just in my other video to just see how they cut and what they look like. And as I was cutting them, I thought they would make really cute little layers for between your layers on a scrapbooking page, or just kind of peeking out in different places, whether on a pocket page or on a scrapbook page. And so what I thought I could do is actually trim off the frames around them, and then I'd be left with some little snowflake, some partial snowflake shapes. And I really like how these look. I think they would look really cute, as I said, sticking out of some layers. I'm just going to round this corner here to separate this little snowflake piece, which could peek out from between some layers, and then you could put this little snowflake piece so that it sticks out between other layers. And because these adhere, like these were designed to have a square border around them, I'm just going to use my scissors to round off the little corners there. And they make really cute little embellishments. I think they would also look nice on a tag. And this little one in particular has almost a complete snowflake inside of it. So I thought if I just snipped these, I think there are 6 little snips that I have to make to release this little snowflake. And I'm just cutting off the little circle pieces so that I just have this tiny little snowflake, and that makes a really cute little embellishment as well. So I just wanted to show you guys before I made the card that I have some other ideas of what to do with these dies, but I won't be doing that today, but you might see them come up in a future video. So I'll put these aside. And then I'm going to go ahead and speed up this video to 4 times the speed, which is my normal process video speed. And there's the machine. I love how it folds up to such a small footprint. It's perfect. I've been storing it on my desktop, and it doesn't take up much space at all. I really love that I can just leave it there and grab it when I need it. I'm going to cut 4 of these snowflake dies in the larger size. And I'm just using my tool-in-one to get some of the little pieces out of the of the little intricate holes of the die. I'm going to cut 2 of them from white paper, and this is just white cardstock. And again, I just use that tool to get all the little pieces out of the die and also out of the die cut itself. And there we go. And now I'm actually going to get rid of my work mat because the machine actually doesn't move around on your workspace, but my mat was moving around, just all of the effort that goes into cranking the machine. So I find that it was a little bit more stable for the video if I did it on my bare desk instead of on my work mat. So my third snowflake I cut with, I'm just tidying up my space here. The third snowflake I cut with a piece of silver foil paper from my stash, and that looks absolutely beautiful. I love how it turned out. And now I have those 3 dies, and I want to adhere them to a watercolored background that's going to be the exact size of the die. So I took out my watercolors here, and I'm just adding a little drop of water in the 3 different colors of blue that I plan to use. And I'm actually really wetting my paper. I'm wetting it quite a lot because I want the colors that I put on this paper to really dance and move around on the watercolor paper. And I absolutely love how this looks. It's so much fun and so easy. I'm literally just like blobbing it on, and then you'll see me move the card around so that the watercolor just dances around on the page and streaks and streams. And I like to tap it on my work surface. I zoomed out a little bit so that you could see how that works. I just plop the water on and tap it on my work surface, and then it just moves quite fast along the page, and the colors blend together and they just look beautiful. I also keep a little water spray bottle on hand so that I can get lots more water on the page if I need it. And I'm just taking some of the white spots on the paper and I'm just adding more color to the little white corners. I really love how that looks. It's a little light, so I think I'm going to add even more, and that's what I'm doing right here. So I'm just adding more and then water just to move it around on the page. I like how that looks. And just putting it on, just adding some of the lighter color as well. I just didn't feel like there was quite enough pigment on it the first time. So I just use a paper towel to wipe up my palette and close up my watercolor set. And now I'm going to dry this with a heat gun, and I'm going to cut out this part because it takes a little bit to dry it because there's quite a lot of water on these papers. And after I was finished drying it, I actually decided to add more color. I just felt like it was a little bit too light. It was almost the way I wanted it, but I really wanted it to be quite, because so much of it is going to be covered up by the die cut pieces. I want what does peek through in between the little cutouts of the snowflakes. I want that to be quite a bright blue so that I'll get more contrast, and I don't want the die cut to blend in too much with the background paper. So I just smeared some more pigment onto the paper, and I'll dry it again. And there we go. That's a little bit more like it. That's what I was looking for. That really, kind of really bright blue. So you can see how when I put the die cut over that watercolor paper, I get a lot more contrast now that there's more blue on the background. And I'm putting little marks on the corners of where my squares are. I know that they're 3x3, and I could have just randomly cut 3x3 squares out of these papers, but I wanted to I was just double checking that it actually was 3x3. I wanted to take advantage of some of the prettiest parts of the paper, so I just added those little tick marks on the edges of the corners of the squares, just so that I could get the part of the paper that I really wanted to have on this card. And so I'm just cutting it down more carefully now, so just cutting it to 3x3. There we go. And that's watercolor paper, so it's very thick and it holds its shape quite nicely despite all the huge amounts of water that I put on it. Now I'm going to use some really strong glue here. This is Tombow Mono Multi, and I'm going to just add some glue around the outside edges and on some of the other parts of this die cut, pardon me, and I'm just going to adhere it to that watercolor square that I made. And then I just want it to dry, so I just put my watercolor palette on top of it in order to hold it down to dry. Now, before I glue these next ones onto their watercolor squares, I'm going to do something to them. I don't want them to be plain white paper. I'm going to emboss them. And so I have my Versamark ink pad here and a little tub of glitter embossing powder. And this is holographic glitter embossing powder. I'm just going to sprinkle it over in my little embossing powder tray. And then I'm using a set of tweezers. I'll zoom in a little bit so that you can see this. Now, I haven't used this holographic embossing powder before, and I like how it looks, but it's a little bit too subtle for me. You can barely see, well, you can see the glitter, but it's a little bit too subtle. So I'm going to go ahead and re-ink it with more Versamark and do another coat of it in the hopes that this will make it quite a bit more glittery. Now, this particular glitter embossing powder has little gray specks of glitter as well as silver and kind of the holographic kind that looks different colors in different lights. And I'm really liking that, but I want to go overboard on the glitter. I want a lot of glitter on this particular one because the other one isn't going to have any glitter. So I really want to kind of see how this is going to look with more. So I'm going to put that away and take out this really shiny glitter embossing powder. And I just keep it in a little Ziploc container so that I can scoop it on top of the die like that and not have to worry about trying to get that glitter back into the container. I do that with the embossing powders that I use the most. And so I have a glitter and a white one and a black one that I keep in the Ziploc containers. So this is quite significantly more glittery, and you'll get to see that in the close-ups at the end. And so that one I'm really pleased with. It's super glittery. It has 3 different layers of glitter embossing on it. It's super awesome, shiny. This one, I want it to be white embossed. And so this is my white embossing powder. I just use a little plastic spoon to kind of scoop that powder onto my sticky die cut. And then I'm just heat embossing it to melt the plastic. And I find with one coat of this, you get a bit of a pebbly look. And so I always do 2 coats. So more embossing ink, which is just basically a really sticky glue, and then another coat of the embossing powder. And I want it on there pretty thick, so that's why I added a little bit extra there. And now I'm going to emboss it. And this gives me a really nice, smooth, shiny finish. It almost looks like this die cut is made out of plastic when you emboss it like this with white. It's so pretty. I love it. So there's the glittery one. And I'm going to add some of that super sticky glue to the edge of this one as well. And then just like I did for the silver one, I'm just going to adhere that down and put a weight on it so that it'll dry. And now this is the plasticky white one. That's basically, it's just white embossed, but it has that plasticky look to it. And adding the glue to the edges, and now I will stick that one down as well. I love that one. I wasn't sure if it would be too plain when I thought about doing it for the video, but I really like how that one turned out. Now I'm just going to layer them all together with wax paper between them in case the glue oozes, and then I'll put my watercolor paper pad and the watercolor set itself on top of it just to let those dry really nice and flat. They won't take too long to dry, but while they're drying, I'm going to cut some cardstock squares. So I have my trimmer here, and I'm starting with a piece of craft cardstock. I'm going to cut 3 squares, 1 for each card, and I'm cutting them to 3 1/4 by 3 1/4. So that's just 1/4 of an inch bigger than the die cut pieces that I have drying over there on their watercolor backgrounds. And now I'm going to cut 3 more squares that are 3.5 by 3.5. So I'm getting larger by 1/4 inch increments as I go out, and these will provide some mats upon which that die cut will sit. And now I pre-make these card bases. It's basically white cardstock that I cut to 10.5 by 5.25, and then I score it and fold it. And that gives me a 5.5 inch square card, which is a card size that I like to make. So I took some 6x6 pattern paper here with this really pretty blue color scheme. It's blue and white and gray, and I adore it. So I'm going to cut it so that it's just a tiny bit smaller than my card base. So I'm cutting it at 5 by 5, and I'm going to cut 3 of them, although I actually end up cutting 4 of them because I can't decide between 2 of the patterns. So I'm just trimming an inch off of each size, off of each adjacent side, because this is a 6x6 paper pad. I do like to keep my little pieces of paper that are scraps because I put them as a band on the inside of my card, and that just dresses up the inside a little bit. So I kept one of each of the 3 patterns that I plan to use. And I also pre-make what I call card liners, which is just a piece of plain white cardstock that's a little bit smaller than the card itself. So these are cut at 5 by 5. And I just mount them inside of my 5.25 inch square card bases. So and that's really just to add some weight to the card so it doesn't so that it doesn't fold or bend when you tent it on your table. So now I'm using this pattern paper to serve as my background on these cards. Really love how that looks. I ended up, there was a mark on the white cardstock, so I matted it on the wrong side, so I just added another mat there. So now I'm going to layer these mats so that the craft cardstock is on the top here. And now these cards are almost ready for assembly. So these are ready now, these little die cut squares. Oh, I love them. They look so cute. Just using some adhesive to attach those die cut squares with the watercolor backgrounds onto my little double mats that I already made. There we go. And I'm thinking to give this card even more dimension, I'm just going to use some foam adhesive between these 3 layers of mats and then the background paper of the card. So I will do that with all 3 of these cards. I love how each one is a little bit different. I like giving unique cards to people, but it's hard for me to come up with completely individual designs. So this is a really nice way to use one card design, but be able to have a couple of different options and color schemes and whatnot. So here I go, just putting these little strips on the insides of the cards. There we go. Oh, I love how they look. They're so cute. So I want to put a sentiment inside, and I just grabbed a Christmas stamp set and took a sentiment from it, and I'm using a warm gray ink that kind of coordinates with the color scheme on the outside of the card. And it says Joyful Wishes, and there's a couple of different places you can put it, so I just put it in a few different places. I really like it down in the bottom right hand corner. I think that's just an interesting place to put a sentiment inside of a card. So here are the cards up close. Look at that foil snowflake. Isn't that awesome? Such an easy thing to do. That was the easiest of all 3 cards, and it still has quite a lot of impact. It's just so pretty. And then here is the super sparkly, glittery one. And you could make this with glitter glue or with loose glitter as well, as opposed to embossed glitter. I really like glitter embossing powder because it keeps the glitter contained. It doesn't brush off quite as much as loose glitter does, and it doesn't take as long to dry as glitter glue. And then here's this white embossed one. It's so pretty, and it really does look like a piece of plastic or acrylic or something on the card. It's so pretty. I have some photos coming up next for you to look at of all the cards up close. I wanted to thank Spellbinders for sending me the Platinum 6 die cutting and embossing machine to work with. It will definitely become my standard die cutting machine because I love how compact it is and how nicely it fits on my desk without covering things and getting in the way. Here are some of the cards up close. I love that white embossed one. It looks so pretty. These intricate dies make such beautiful focal points for cards. I find that these dies are so beautiful just on their own that they allow me to not have to worry so much about coming up with a really interesting card design. I can just do a really basic card design like this one. It's basically just a bunch of nested squares, and then that just allows the die cut to take center stage and really catch your eye. And I think these cards look really beautiful. You could add a sentiment to the outside if you want. You could layer it right over top of the die cut or put it down in the corner. But I think these cards look absolutely amazing. Thanks so much to Spellbinders for sending me the supplies that I used on this video. Make sure that you check out my other video where I talk about the machine up close and personal and show you all of the features and how it works and why I love it so much. Take care and have a really great scrappy week.